All right, welcome to today's office hours. We are going to go over the using Delighted within Realvolve. Now, technically, today is not March 23rd, but we are doing this as a rerun for those people that attended on March 23rd. Apologize for any inconvenience. There were some technical challenges, and we just were not able to get everything recorded properly. So we're just going to re-record this with our team. What we're going to do is talk about Delighted. Delighted is a service that is used for doing surveys, satisfaction surveys. They have lots of different type of services that they use. And we want to use our webhook, our new webhook feature, to communicate with them, to send information to the Delighted servers and be able to return information. And the big question typically is what is a webhook? This is some kind of new term that many people have never heard of. And just in plain English, what it is this a web address to and send data to, push data to that. To get a visual look of it, it is really coming down to, we've got Realvolve, the application Realvolve, and it's made of three main databases: the contacts, the properties, and the transactions. And at this point now, we have within the workflow structure, we have the ability to use a workflow action to send data to a webhook URL. But what we want to do is concentrate on the Delighted. But you could be sending data to Google Docs, Google Sheets, Slack, Trello, lots of different services that are out there. The thing that I typically do is use Zapier to be able to grab information or do something with using their webhook capabilities. And all you need is some other service that has some kind of action that can be done on their side. So it could be, sending a postcard. It could be updating a spreadsheet. It could be just about anything. And today we're going to go over the Delighted service. So if you go to delighted.com, and the thing that I really like about Delighted is that they offer many different types of satisfaction survey type things. The NPS score is a popular one. A lot of people use that. The Net Promoter Score does a scoring, and you've got to get within a range. And if you're below that range, you need a lot of work. Most agents, though, go with something very simple, very straightforward, and just use like the 5-star or the smileys type of services. And you can certainly do that. But if you go out to Delighted, set up an account, you'll get some options to create different projects. We're going to create, in this scenario, we're going to create a 5-star rating type of project, in which case it will send an email and give us the opportunity, or give the client the opportunity, to rate us in a 1 to 5-star scenario. There are different ways that you can send with Delighted, which is really great. You can do email, text messages, just do links or kiosks. There's lots of different options there. We'll just set up an email one as an example. Now, whenever you get into Delighted, and they're really inexpensive for what they do, because you can also incorporate them into your website and do lots of other things, you're going to get into an area where there's a dashboard, in which case you have potentially multiple projects. Make sure you select the right project. In this case, I created a project called Realvolve Office Hours, and there is a integrations section. So once you're in the Realvolve Office Hours, you go into the integrations. You'll see several different integration services. One of them is the Zapier integration. And you're going to click on that, and it will then open up another window and showing you an API key. You're going to need access to this API key. This is my API key. I blurred it out so that you guys don't try it, use it, or any kind of mischief like that. But you need that. You can just copy that link and move on. So once you have that API key, it's something that is important. You got to make sure you're in the right project. I put it there just to show you where to find it. What we're going to do is go through the steps for creating the Zap, and we're going to need that project ID in a few minutes. But I wanted to make sure that you understood you have to have the right integration API key for the right project. Make sure you know that. I use Zapier, and most people do use Zapier because it's such a robust platform for doing connections of two different products. There is a trigger, and then there is an action. two different things that happen to bring these two applications together. Something triggers, and then that trigger makes something happen. So we need to define our trigger and our action. You can do that by going into Zapier and just click on the little Create Zap button, and it will pop up and say, okay, what is the trigger that you want to use? And because we are doing this through Realvolve, we're going to use the Webhook feature. We need to use the Webhook Zap. I just typed in the search field here, Webhook, or part of Webhook, and it did a search and found the only app right now that has the word Webhook in it. So you just come here, click on Webhook, and then it starts help building through this little wizard. The question is once I get the Webhook app, what is it that I want that app to do? And in this case, there is a trigger. The trigger is I want to catch the hook. Now, what does that mean? Catching the hook just means I'm catching some data. Whatever data was being sent by this URL that we need, and we'll get to that here in a second, but we need to catch a hook of data and bring it in and use it for some purposes. So we choose catch a hook and click on continue. Zapier then looks at it and says, oh, he wants to catch a hook. Okay, that means I need to provide a webhook URL. And that's what they do. They pop up a little screen and they give you an ambiguous URL. It just a series of numbers and strings of information, and it's there. You don't have to worry about what it means or anything. All you need to do is copy it. We need this URL. And then you can click on continue. Now, what you need to do with this, we're going to copy it to our clipboard, and we're going to go to Realvolve. So I'm going to go over into Realvolve, and I'm going to create my workflow, or if I'm already have a workflow in place, maybe I've got my I've got some new leads coming in, and at the end of dealing with my leads, I want to send them a survey of some sort, a satisfaction survey. In this case, I go into my actions of an activity, and let me bring this over in Realvolve. It'll probably make a little more sense. So I'm going to go into my workflows area, and I want to go into, actually, I'm just going to create a new activity. So I click on create a new workflow, and I'm going to say send satisfaction survey. I'm going to do this on a contact. You could do it on properties and transactions as well. I'm just going to do this example here on contact and click on add. So now I have my workflow topic, send satisfaction survey, but I could have been doing this through maybe a new leads workflow or whatever. So I'm just using this as an example for one of them. I want to add a new activity to the workflow. And in this case, my activity is just, I want to send this survey. So I want to send satisfaction survey. Choose who needs to do it. Choose, you can choose who you're going to do it with. In this case, I want to do it with whoever the workflow contact is, who I started the workflow on. It's the workflow contact. And I want to come down here to the action. And the action, I just click on to create. And I give it a title, send survey. And I don't need any kind of message in this case. I want to come down here to this new option that we have, Webhook. Webhook is is the area we're going to paste this data into it. Once we have copied it from Zapier, we just paste it in here. If you need more information on Webhook, we've got this section here for some helps. It'll take you straight to our help on Webhook, and we've got some videos and stuff on it as well. But this is where you're going to paste it. Now, I didn't copy it because I'm just doing this from the slide deck, but you'll paste it in there. At the same time you paste it in there, you can also click on send sample data. And what that'll do is that will take the data that we have kind of pre-assembled to send to this webhook and just blast it out to them. And you need that for this next step. So that's what this is about. This is just about creating that activity, creating the action on that activity, giving it a name, putting the webhook URL, and sending the sample data. So once you've done that, once you've done the send sample data, you can then go to Zapier. And in that previous screen where we were doing the copy, and then we click on continue, it then brings you to this screen where we would catch the hook. We're going to test that trigger. So we just did that send sample data. We just send sample data to that URL. It now has data. We can click on test trigger, and it should show us the data that we sent to it. So ultimately, what you're looking for is something that says, we found the request, and then it'll show you some sample data that's in there. Now, if it's a contact workflow, it'll say type contact. If it's a property, it'll say property, or it'll say transaction, I believe, or it might say escrow. Now I'm thinking about it. I think it's transaction. One of the nice things that is here, though, is it lists out all the different fields that you have available to you. I've also created a link here. You guys will all get this slide. You can click on this link and it'll open up a complete list of all the fields divided up by contacts, properties, and transactions. So at least you can get a full list of everything available is there. Once we've done that test and we hit continue, now we know that the trigger side of Zapier is done. We've created the trigger. Now we need to know, what's the action? Once I receive this data, what is it that I'm going to do with this data? In this case, we're going to go to delighted. So I just typed in delighted in the little search field. It brings me up a list of anything that has the word delighted in it, in which case I want this delighted item here, not the legacy. So I click on delighted, and it's now saying, okay, what type of survey do we want to do? What action event? In this case, I want the action event to be send email survey. And then I click on continue. Now this is where in delighted, we need to set up which account. And in order to set up the account, we need that API key. So what you'll do is go back into delighted, into the dashboard, make sure you've got the correct project set up, selected, and then go into integrations, go into Zapier, and then grab that API key. Once you grabbed it, copying it to your clipboard, you're going to go back this little pop-up window in the action, and you're going to paste that API key into that window and click on continue yes. That will then make sure that you've got the right account set up. If you've already got an account set up in Zapier, then you can just select it. But most of you probably don't or won't, and you need to make sure you select it. So you'll create an account, you'll go to delighted, grab the API key, and paste that API key into the pop-up, and then click on yes, continue. It'll bring you to this screen. Now, this is where all the magic happens. This is once we've sent that data to this webhook, we need to do something with that data, but we need to know what data to use. So we're going to go into the setup action piece, and we need to know, who are we going to send this to? What's the email address? Well, if I click into this field, it'll pop up a list of all my fields from step 1 webhook. And in this case, I want the contact's email address, the home category, home email address. In which case it'll show you joe@email.net because we're using the sample data. Now, one thing that you may want to do whenever you're first setting this up for this particular one, because it does send a sample email to this person, you might want to just put in your email first, not put in this merge field, just so that you can run a sample and then come back and then put in that merge field from the data. Otherwise, joe@email.net is going to get an email from you and you won't be able to test it, and he may give you a bad score because he doesn't even know who the heck you are. Just understand that during the test cycle, it will actually send an email, and you want to make sure that email is good. Once it's good and it looks the way you want it, you can come back to this field, put in the merge field for the proper email address that'll be coming from Realvolve, and then you'll be good to go. The name on this is, who am I sending this to? In this case, I wanted to use the mailing name, so contact mailing name, Joe and Jane client in this case. If you just want to use like the first name field, you can do that. However you want to set that piece up, you can do it. I just use the mailing name. The delay, you can put a delay on it so that once you send this webhook, it waits an hour, day, or something like that. I wouldn't worry about that. Say no delay. And then the properties, this can be ignored. This is not real estate properties. It's some additional stuff that you can send to Delighted. Once you've put in the 2 pieces of information, you just click on continue. And then it sends that sample email to the email address that you just put in there. In this case, it would be joe@email.net or com. And what we're looking for is a successful test. Once it's successful, then we can turn on the Zap. If you did put in your own email address, you need to go back to the action. Once this is successful, go back to the setup action, make sure you put in the right email address, and then come back here. You don't have to send another sample. You can just turn on the Zap. So what happens then is once that sample goes out, the receiver of that email will get something like this. The Realvolve office hours is the project, and then there's an area within that project where you can specify what am I asking them. How would you rate your service for Realvolve office hours is what I have in there, and then the star. So you click on whatever star rating. From that star rating, then you can also put in, I think, some additional detail information. What were extra comments? So that's useful. Once they answer that, if you go back to your dashboard in Delighted, you'll see all the responses. So ultimately, now that you've got this set up in Zapier, it's the trigger and the action. It's there from now on. It's good. All you have to do every time you want to use this now is in that workflow activity that we set up. You start the workflow. The activity comes due whenever it comes due. At the time you go in, you go to complete it. You check the little, yes, I want to run the Delighted survey, and click on run. At that point, then it will do the process. Now, if you guys will take your cameras right now, take your mobile camera and do a scan of this with your photo. You don't have to actually take a photo. Just use your camera with the photo app to take a photo and point it at the screen. It'll give you a little pop-up. You can click on that QR code's link, and it'll take you to a sample of what we just did. So then you can go in, you can do the process of giving us stars, putting in comments, and actually see how it works. If you guys don't mind, give me what you think as far as satisfaction on our office hours. Fill it out for me, just to let me know how I'm doing and what we could be doing better. If there's any kind of comments, definitely put it in there. I am reviewing those. But ultimately, what it comes down to is once the surveys go out, it's in their hands. You could send some reminders. If they don't, there's some reminder possibilities in here that it sends. Whenever you go to your dashboard, you can see the comments, see the information, you can filter them, you can do some great stuff. And this just allows you to identify how are you doing as an agent with your clients. The better option on this, yes, you want to make sure that they're being satisfied, but you're also looking for those comments. Was there something that you could have done better at some point in your process? Was there something that maybe they didn't understand what they were going through or whatever? And build that into your workflow. If they're not responding or they're not excited about some piece of the process that you're doing, that's where you go into your workflows and you make adjustments to your workflows. The clients may not have ever been through a real estate process at all. They may not know what's going on. And just that unknowing of what the process is can be intimidating. So what you can do is in your workflows, give them information about what's going to happen next before it even happens. And that adds that satisfaction. So ultimately, you're looking for happy clients. That makes a happy you. And we want to do that with webhooks. Any questions?
Yeah, one piece of clarification. When you are setting up the webhook on the Realvolve side, within the action, are you putting in where is that link coming from again?
Okay,
right there. So is that
sure.
From Zapier?
Yeah, so let's go to Zapier. Let me just go and do this as a live example here. So you can either click on this create Zap, or and it'll step you through that process, or you can even do it right here. And I kind of like this. It reduces a few of the steps. Let's say we want to do Webhook. So I do Webhook by Zapier is my trigger. If I'm going to connect this app with this app, in this case, I want to go Delighted. Choose Delighted. Okay, and it says, okay, based off of these two apps, when this happens, in this case, catch hook, I want to do this. I want to send a send email survey, and I click on try it. So whenever I do that, now it's creating that trigger and that action elements, and it's going to come and say, hey, he wants to catch a hook. I got to give him a hook. So here's that hook. So I just click on copy here. I go over to Realvolve and I paste it here. I can then send the sample, and you'll see a little pop-up says send, it's sending the sample. Now I can come back over here and I can just click on continue. And at this point, it should have that trigger information. Sometimes it takes a little bit, but boom, there's that data. I just sent this data to that trigger. So now it's showing me, here's the example of all the stuff you're going to do. So then I can come over here to the Delighted app, send the survey. I can choose which account I want to use, and doing it on this one. And then I click on continue. And here's where it's going to ask for the email. So I click on, and here's where I can select all my different fields. If I choose all options, these are all the different fields from that webhook data that came in, right? I can come up here to survey, and I can say email. It'd be easier to just kind of scroll down through here. Here it is. No, it's lender. So I do have lots of different fields. That is kind of the bigger challenge is there's lots of different fields in here. So email, address, contact, email, address, home, right there. So I click on that and here and type in mailing name.
Is Joe client going to always be the sample data?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So once I do that, I click on continue. If I click on continue, it'll send an email. But this is where you might want to send it to your own email address first, mark.stepp@gmail.com, or whatever. Click on continue, and then test and continue. So it's going to test it, and for some reason it could not be sent. Oh, trial limit. So I was doing a trial of Delighted on this, so it's just saying my account has gone past its limit, so I need to pay for it. But in either case, that gives you the ability, once it's sent good, then you're going to come back to here and change that app back out to the home email address.
Another question I had, will it always be something that they have to connect through Zapier, or will you be able to connect directly to certain systems?
Certain systems that have webhooks, you can connect to them as well. There's any number of things, and there are other services similar to Zapier, like Trade.io. You could use If This Then That, the IFTTT app. They have webhook capabilities. I even set up a webhook to turn on and turn off my lights in my house. Crazy stuff like that maybe you wouldn't really use on a workflow, but just think about the possibilities. If you could turn off or turn on the alarm before somebody's going to show the house, now you don't have to give your alarm code to people. I mean, there's things like that could be set up to help automate the process and make things easier for you. Turn on and off lights. Maybe you got some water features that you want to turn on whenever people are being shown the house. That type of stuff could be done and really make a big impact. Any other questions?
Not really a question, but a statement. Like, this is huge. The amount of possibilities. I am really excited to see where this takes us.